Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Newsbrowse News broadcast. Global News reports that Prime Minister Mark Carney has pledged an additional $270 million to Ukraine, aimed at bolstering its critical military capabilities against Russia's full-scale invasion. Carney made the announcement from Armenia, where he is currently attending the European Political Community Summit, a key gathering for strategic cooperation in politics, security, and infrastructure. This latest contribution will fund items from a NATO-approved list, raising Canada's total financial support for Ukraine to $25.8 billion. Speaking before his meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Carney emphasized Canada's unwavering backing for Ukraine, stating that the aid will strengthen its defense and help secure future peace and prosperity. Zelensky expressed gratitude for the moral and financial assistance from Canadian friends. Canada is notably the first non-European country to participate in the summit. Carney addressed the leaders, advocating for international partnerships in a changing world and highlighting Europe's pivotal role in rebuilding the international order. He also held discussions with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Antonio Costa on deepening collaboration in areas like supply chains, critical minerals, energy, and technology. Global News reports that the Ontario Court of Appeal is scheduled to hear Peter Nygard's appeal against his sexual assault convictions and prison sentence on Monday. The former fashion mogul was convicted in 2023 on 4 counts of sexual assault and sentenced to 11 years behind bars, with his effective prison time being less than 7 years after credit for time served. Nygard's legal team is challenging the conviction, arguing that the trial judge made errors, including improperly admitting the testimony of clinical psychologist Lori Haskell on the effects of trauma. They also contend that the judge erred by allowing the jury to consider evidence from one complainant to support cases involving others. The Crown, however, maintains that any errors in admitting Haskell's testimony were harmless and did not lead to a miscarriage of justice. Nygard, who founded his clothing company in Winnipeg, also faces sex charges in Quebec and extradition to the United States on sex trafficking and racketeering charges, all of which he denies. The Ford government is introducing new legislation, reported by City News Everywhere, to empower special transit constables with arrest powers for individuals using illegal substances on public transit, effective July 1. This initiative, championed by Solicitor General Michael Kersner, is part of a tough-on-crime approach aimed at enhancing safety across Metrolinx, TTC, and OC Transpo systems. The bill also expands its scope to target illegal drug production by making it unlawful to possess or sell devices like pill presses for illicit drug manufacturing and to own, produce, or traffic precursor chemicals. Commercial landlords knowingly permitting such activities on their properties will face penalties, and police will be authorized to shut down these operations, with exemptions for care facilities. While the Ontario Special Constables Association supports the changes, they acknowledge increased safety risks for officers. Premier Doug Ford has previously advocated for these arrest powers, citing investments in addiction treatment programs. However, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association has voiced concerns, warning of potential unreasonable search and seizure and arbitrary detention of marginalized individuals. Global News reports that the Alberta separatist group Stay Free Alberta is scheduled to deliver thousands of signatures on Monday to Elections Alberta's head office in Edmonton. The petition aims to trigger a province-wide referendum on the province's potential withdrawal from the Canadian Confederation. According to Mitch Silvestre, the group's head, they had already collected significantly more than the required 178,000 signatures by over a month ago, having started their efforts in January. Premier Danielle Smith has indicated her willingness to move forward with a ballot question as early as October if the collected names are sufficient and verified. However, this initiative faces a significant legal challenge. An Edmonton judge is expected to issue a ruling this week on a court case launched by a group of Alberta First Nations, who argue that the petition infringes upon their inherent treaty rights. CTV News reports that Ontario Premier Doug Ford has announced plans to implement tough new rules aimed at cracking down on drug use within the province's public transit system. The Premier stated that riders have had enough of the current situation. Previously, in February, a proposal was made to grant special constables on public transit additional powers, enabling them to direct individuals consuming drugs to leave the premises or face charges under the provincial code. Ford had earlier voiced concerns that Ontarians felt scared to use subways due to visible public drug use, emphasizing that while transit constables should not possess the full powers of the Toronto Police, they need sufficient authority to remove drug users from the transit system. Although the Premier has announced these forthcoming tough new rules, their specific details remain unclear at this time. Ford's remarks on Monday come in response to a report by City News Toronto, which CTV News Toronto has not independently confirmed. Ontario Solicitor General Michael Kersner is scheduled to speak later today and is expected to provide further information. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.